What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of Ghosts Aren't Real, a podcast where we dive into the paranormal, talk about our thoughts about it, and our experiences with it.
Tonight, we're going to be discussing our investigation of nearly famous Deli and Pasta House in Springfield, Missouri.
If you want to watch the videos on our YouTube channel, you should go do that right now. There are 2 videos, part 1 and part 2. Probably you should watch part 1 first. But watch those videos on our YouTube channel, Payton and Levi Investigations. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, shoot us a message. Tell us if you liked it. Tell us if you hated it.
You'll probably want to search PLI, nearly famous.
That's PLI, nearly famous.
It might pop up. I don't really know.
So, Nearly Famous is a sandwich and pasta shop in Springfield, Missouri. Payton and I worked here together for 2 years, 2.5 years.
I don't remember.
I no longer work here. Payton still works here.
Same.
I think you are officially tenured here longer than I was when I
am.
Here.
I've been here over 3 years.
Yeah, and I was just under 3 years when I left. That's crazy. Wow, that's crazy.
That's interesting.
So, Nearly Famous has been around in Springfield since the 70s?
76.
1976. There used to be at a previous location, but that location burnt down, moved in here about
Early
16
2000s.
years ago. Yeah, early 2000s. It's right across from the Battlefield Mall on Glenstone. Before this building was Nearly Famous, it used to be Burr's.
It's like a bar burger place sort of thing.
Burr's Bars and Burgers.
Burgers. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's
boy.
what it is.
No, you're correct. So we investigated here twice. We did it. The first time was in November of 2021, and that was our first ever investigation. Ever. And since you paused the video earlier and are now going to watch the investigations, and then you're coming back to the video, and we just said that it was our first investigation, you have reassured yourself because you were probably watching the first video and you're like, man, this seems like this is their first ever investigation.
And this seems like our first ever podcast.
No kidding. But the first place we ever went to was here.
Yeah.
So definitely after watching back the video of our first time, it was pretty choppy. We didn't know. I mean, we knew what we were doing, but we're still getting used to it. Rookies. We're still rookies. I said that last episode. We're going to be rookies for a while.
We still are, and we'll continue to be rookies. And I think if you watch the first part and then you watch the second part, you will see just like a massive jump in just us in front of a camera and also just investigating and things like that, which I think is really cool to see personally, but also I guess as a viewer, if you decide to watch this stuff, that's fun too.
And it's funny too, because the second time we went here, it was in April of the next year. So it was 5 months after the first time, which is not that long of a time, especially considering we only did one investigation in between those 2 videos. The Weaver house that we previously mentioned.
I still have the footage for that.
It's funny. I hope we continue to talk up the Weaver house. Like people are like, man, they mention it, but we never get to see it. Like we just continue to talk it up and then release the video. And
it's just us. You know what? I don't want to talk about what happened, even though I already said nothing happened. But did nothing happen?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dude, never mind. I'll talk about that later.
No, say it.
It's in another video that's gonna be coming out. But you and a buddy are coming off of an elevator, and I'm like jamming. Yes. I'm like jamming to some music that I'm making up on the spot. Okay, so we invest. Do you want to talk about each one individually? Like, let's just jump into the first investigation that we did.
Sure.
Just kind of,
Why was this our first investigation?
This was our first investigation because we had heard some stories from the owner and some coworkers that there had just been some weird things that had happened. Paranormal things, some might say. Which we talk about in the video, but there are things such as sound barriers being broken, paper towel dispensers going off by themselves, weird, eerie feelings in certain places, We didn't know about this going into the first investigation, but there's also another coworker who gets here really early in the morning where he had mentioned there had been a few times where he heard voices, which he just kind of concluded that maybe in the back alley there were people talking, or maybe people throughout the shopping center were talking. But that's pretty early, and I don't know. That's interesting. But with all that information, minus the last bit, we were like, let's jump into investigating this stuff because we want to see what this is all about.
And an update to the story of the paper towel dispenser that you are so zoned in on right now. You guys got a new one.
We got a new one.
The old one would go off randomly and nobody would be here.
It did break.
Which
is why we got a new one.
Well, yeah. But it would go off. It's motion detected, motion activated. Got a new one.
And it went off. By itself. I don't know why. I wasn't there when it happened, so
Did it happen?
About it. Did it happen? Paintings would fall off the wall. That was another thing. That was another thing.
the same painting fell off the wall at the same time on two different occasions. So, I mean, nothing like big, like huge, like, oh my gosh, this place is haunted. You guys should come here and investigate.
Yeah, nobody like being possessed. No chairs flying around yet.
No candles being lit randomly or people being scratched or
growls on
thrown
stairs.
off the banister.
People getting hanged.
See, that's what happens when you make fun of me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so with all that information, we were like, hey, let's jump in and investigate it. And Nancy Miller,
bless her heart,
graciously allowed us.
I almost said God rest her soul. Why would I say that? We saw her 20 minutes ago.
Did we didn't even mention did we mention we're at Nearly Famous right now?
Yeah, because we did that, and then I went this and I did that.
Yeah, but people who are just listening don't know what.
Folks, we are at Nearly Famous right now. Table 4.
Table 4.
I almost put my elbow on the table.
Yeah, don't, because you know what'll happen if you touch the table right now?
Okay.
Sorry. We'll try not to. That's why my glass is in my seat. Oh, anyway, we're at Nearly Famous. Bless
you.
With all that, and Nancy being such a cool person and allowing us the opportunity to spend the whole night here and shenanigan away, we were able to start our journey of being paranormal investigation ghost hunter experts.
And boy, did we shenanigan.
Dude. Do we want to talk about the voice box that was here?
Was it the first time?
That was the first time.
That was the first time. Yeah, because we didn't include it in the video.
We didn't, because we didn't want it to seem like something was being was tampering with what we might find.
So we got here that night, pretty late at night. I don't remember what time, but we started setting up and getting ready. And we heard this like super weird, like, like gargly voice. And I wasn't ever like, oh my God, it's happening.
The first time it went off, I did. I was like,
oh yeah,
what is that? I freaked out.
Probably took us a solid 15 minutes to find it. It was like under this cabinet, and it was a little like pre-recorded voice thing that our boss stuck here to mess with us. But it would make a sound every.
It was like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah. And it was well hidden.
It was underneath the cabinet that we had to get on the ground to find.
The ground was dirty.
It was dirty.
Which is our fault, because we're supposed to sweep it.
Well, I don't think it was like bits and pieces. It was just kind of like dusty.
True.
Dusty
divot. So that happened. That was the first thing that happened, and it initially frightened us, and we were sus. But it was just our boss pulling a prank.
Which I appreciate. That their prank was only that, and they didn't do anything else.
They did. I feel like they did joke about coming here and like banging on the back door.
That's why we had to take the bar off the door.
That's right. That's right. I remember that now. So the back door in this place has like a big bar on it.
Metal bar.
To just ensure that there's no shenanigans. Authorized shenanigans.
Nice.
And we were instructed to take it off the back door. And I don't know if she made up the reason or it was a legitimate reason.
I think she made it up.
But
I could
she
be
was like,
wrong.
hey, if you have people in here, according to fire code, you should take it off the back door because if you needed, it's a fire escape if you need to get out, whatever. So we took it off the back door. And we've later found out that they wanted us to do that so they could get in the back door and spook us.
Which they didn't, which I'm thankful for.
Because I would have been spooked.
I would have been spooked and it would have tampered with the investigation.
Exactly. Just like, have you seen the one Ghost Adventures episode where they go to Kansas City, Union Station?
I might have seen it somewhere, but I don't remember at all.
They get some intriguing capturants, but they deemed the entire episode not legit because somebody forgot to cancel the cleaning crew. So there was a cleaning crew there.
Oh man.
And it like tampered all their evidence.
That makes me think of like, okay, I'm thankful that we had this place to ourselves. That's my bad. My my phone went off. And so like the noises that we heard and the things that happened were what they were. So yeah, that sucks that they had some cleaning crew. I've heard that story. Maybe you told me that story.
Probably. I tend to tell the same story multiple times and my friends make fun of me for it. Rightfully so.
Every time we drive by a motel. Okay, I won't even bring that up.
The last segue we're going to have here is that's the reason why I don't want to, and I think we have we have collectively agreed to not film at hotels.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of famous haunted hotels like the Crescent Hotel in Arkansas or the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. But it's just like there's so much going on. There's people in other rooms. There's a million things that are happening. And like unless we spent a lot of money to get the entire hotel to ourselves for a full, 12 hours or whatever, there's no point in investigating there because there's just so much other stuff that could be happening that, you hear noise and people on YouTube now that go investigate hotels, they're like, oh, did you hear that? It's like, well, of course, it's a hotel. There's somebody in the room above you.
Yeah, or below you, or to your left and your right.
Golly jeepers. So we got set up, and I believe the very first thing we did was do like a little REM pod Q&A.
The first thing we ever experienced in this journey, starting here at Newly Famous, was the REM pod going off on a table right down there to my left and behind you. How did you feel when that happened?
Boy, you would have thought that I saw the second coming of Jesus right in front of me. I was like, dude, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Because like it went off immediately. And going into the investigation, we're still skeptics. But going into the investigation, I was like, well, shoot, nothing's going to happen, because this stuff isn't real. Ghosts aren't real. I pointed at the name of the podcast that's above us. And it went off.
It would be below or above.
Yeah. It went off before we even started. You were still setting up the camera.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. That's like, I said, that's it. Cause that's what we want to happen. We want things to go off so we can talk about them. It's kind of what we do.
Yeah, that is what we do. We talk to the air and wait for things to happen. It spooked me. I think I got chills the first time it happened. And then it went off a few more times.
Mm-hmm.
Beep, 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 beep. And then it didn't happen anymore over there.
Not over there. The REM pod went off a lot though that night.
It did.
Do you remember what setting we had it on?
I think it was 3.
Classic 3s.
Which the REM pod, if you're not familiar with the REM pod, is a device that, well, if you watch the video, you'd be familiar with it. So what are you still doing listening? Go watch the video. PLI on YouTube, Nearly Famous, Part 1. Actually, every video we have that has a REM pod, we explain what it is. It's this device that's basically like a motion detector, but it radiates an electromagnetic field, and if something breaks the plane of that field, it'll beep. And there's 5 settings on it. I think I just spit a little bit. I actually don't think I did. Yeah, I did. There's 5 settings on it. And each setting extends the range of its field. So if something's further away on the 5th setting, it'll pick it up. But if it's like on the 1st setting, it might not pick it up if it's a little farther away. Further. So we found out that some of the settings were a little more active than others.
And we tested it a lot because the REM pod would go off so much. Like that was the one device we had that would go off of all the devices we have that could go off. That one, that one did the most. So we really did a lot of trials to see like why it was going off. So yeah, we found out that if it were on the third setting, then it would go off more than any other setting. Like we did this in a bunch of different places, like our apartments, probably at the church once, in a hotel room.
Yeah, I remember that one.
The REM pod went off a lot that night. A lot in the kitchen, really.
Yeah, that one was like where it went off the most.
Yeah, that one spot on the floor.
Even before, well, I think whenever going back and watching it, I noticed I don't think it went off unless one of us walked by it, which made me
true. Like we activated it first, and then and then we went away, and then it kept going.
And it would continue. Yeah.
I mean, the only exceptions were when it went off. The first thing we did right over there. I guess we did another thing.
We did it over there,
the other side too,
which made me jump.
Yeah, I didn't even hear it the first time. You should have like a sad moment in our next video.
Of
like a sad montage. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that now or later.
We'll do it later. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
If
subscribe.
Are you talking about the next video or the REM pod?
The REM pod in the next video.
It is in the next video. Oh yeah. And the one that people can see, we just called it a piece of junk. Crap. I think that's what you said.
So we from the REM pod, did we do dowsing rods next?
We did not do dowsing rods the first time.
That was the second time. Yeah, because I didn't have them the first time.
I think we went from...
We did an EVP session.
We did an open EVP session, which is where it said a couple things, but the biggest thing was it said...
Your spirit box, you mean, right?
Yeah.
We did the EVP, like voice recorder. We did that first.
We did it. Yes.
In the office.
That is honestly the biggest thing that happened that night to me.
It's the biggest tangible thing that happened for sure.
Yeah.
So we were, I guess we were just doing an EVP session. So basically, EVP session is you have a voice recorder like this that I'm going to gently pick up and not hit the table with.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what it looks like.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on Spotify, it looks like a voice recorder.
With little speakers. That was so gentle.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So you just basically ask questions, like 3 or 4 questions, record it, listen back to it, and see if the recorder picked up something that you couldn't hear with your own ears. Luckily, something did happen that we could pick up with our own ears. There was like a knock on a table in the kitchen that we couldn't debunk.
Don't know what happened.
And we're I'm not like talking it up because it's like, oh my God, it's a knock on a table.
It was just like
a kitchen. Yeah. But it was out of the ordinary. Like with as much time as we spend here and have spent here, like noises like that aren't usual.
Yeah.
Like they happen very much out of the ordinary. So that noise really surprised us because we couldn't figure out what it was. After that, we did an open spirit box session.
Cool.
Spirit box is that little device we have right there.
That if you're
for
watching,
our YouTube
you can
folks,
see.
It is a yes, or
now, or
anyways, it's a device that scans through radio frequencies at a very high rate, and spirits can use it to like pull words out and say them, and it's my favorite.
I enjoy it.
It's my favorite because it's a intelligent conversation device. Because like the rest of the time we're investigating, there's like lights and stuff that we ask it to go off, and you can really only ask yes or no questions to that stuff. But with Spirit Box, you can have like a full on conversation, and I think by far it's drawn the best evidence we have of any of our videos.
Yeah, because especially when you do certain methods with it, it's so hard to find, like, you could be like, oh, that's just a coincidence that with what happened here with both times, with the first time a name popping up in your head after you ask a question, you already have answers in your head that you might be like looking to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But in other methods of this, you can get answers to questions that you have no idea why that happened because the other person can't hear anything except that box. So it's a good device.
I am so glad that both times it captured what it captured, that it was an open spirit box session and not an
Yes.
Estes session. So an Estes session, the Estes method is using the spirit box, but one person has headphones plugged in and a blindfold on, so they're completely sensory deprived, and the only thing that they have any sort of focus on is what's coming through the spirit box, the receiver. And then the other person is asking questions. Super cool, super trippy being under as the receiver.
What if we started like tying ourselves up with this on as well?
Why?
I don't know.
For this spirit box sessions?
Yeah, you like get your hands like tied behind your back also.
I might go insane.
It's trippy because you have to be so relaxed and you have to just like, I call it a flow state kind of, where you
No,
just
really,
kind of
yeah.
like, you're just like, okay, my job is to listen to this thing and say what I hear. And so that's all you're focusing on.
And that's what the guy who invented the Estes method, I should have looked up his name.
I think his name is Connor.
That sounds right. Connor Estes.
That's not his
I
last
know.
name. That's not his last name.
But Connor came up with the Estes method in Estes Park, Colorado. Not at the Stanley Hotel, just in Estes Park, right?
I think it was in the hotel.
Was it in the hotel?
Yeah.
Um,
Fact check, Jess. I don't actually
That's
know.
when we point to the producer that's laughing hysterically in the background.
Yeah. Hey, can you pull it up real quick?
Anyways, so we're beating around the bush here. Open spirit box session in part 1 and part 2. We asked it to say one of our names. In part 1, it very clearly said Payton immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
In part 2,
Dude.
we asked it to say one of our names, and it very clearly immediately afterwards said Levi. And like, there's no going around that. There's no debunking that. That's like, because like of a lot of the things that happen, like devices going off. Personally, I will go back and be like, that was just a coincidence, or oh, something set it off type of thing. But those two instances, like, I'm not going to be able to go back and be like, oh, it didn't say our name.
Yeah.
It very clearly said each of our names.
Yeah. I think that at the conclusion of the, gosh, dude, I keep spitting. I'm so sorry. At the conclusion of the second video, we talk a little bit about how we can't say that this place is not haunted.
Right.
Well, you did because I was out. I was out of it.
That's in my notes to talk about later.
Good, mine a little bit too. And that just helps prove that conclusion. Like, how could that happen? It's just, it's interesting to say the least.
And something we talked about in our first couple episodes of this is that we're really bad at drawing conclusions in the moment, and we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because they're wrong usually.
Yeah.
And even if they're not wrong, even if they're right, like it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we should be going to bed. And then while we're editing the video is when we like, okay, this is probably why this happened. And like not draw a narrative, but like draw the story out through that.
Yeah. I think it is important, like real time, to maybe like try to figure it out.
Yeah, and
but
like go.
You can't like definitively do something, like come to a conclusion.
Correct.
Because it'll be wrong.
But yeah, that was the one thing that was lingering in our minds
from both investigations.
Yeah, exactly. Both investigations that like we couldn't definitively say this place isn't haunted because it said our names when we asked it to say our names. That's wild.
It's weird.
That's like, I mean, I hope it's not, because I hope crazier things happen, but that's probably going to be the best, the best piece of evidence we have for a long time.
Yeah.
I hope it's not.
We'll see. We'll see.
That was pretty much it for the first episode.
Yeah, I was trying to think.
We didn't really do anything else.
We ended on. Yeah, we ended on an Estes session with you.
Yeah.
I don't think I did one. Or maybe I did, nothing happened. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure you did. I think we both did.
It was a pretty short video too.
Yeah. Because we didn't know what we were doing.
We did not know what we were doing. We filmed the outro in my car, the intro and the outro in my car. Energy drinks.
I have that written down as well.
Energy drinks.
If there's 2 words in the English language that I can't say back to back, it's energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
I want you.
25-year-old. I can do this.
We're going to take a 15-second intermission here, and you at home, viewer or listener, are going to try to say energy drinks like 3 times quickly.
One,
we're not going to do that.
no, 1, 2, 3.
I just want
Go.
to feel better about myself and my inability to say those two words. Energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
It's tough.
Big fan of energy drinks, though.
Ghost? Rockstar?
Never had it.
Monster?
Monster.
Monster is kind of the GOAT in my eyes. Red Bull's good second.
I was a big NOS guy in high school.
I'm sorry. That explains everything.
Right.
Maybe we'll have a episode where we do nothing but talk about energy drinks. Energy drinks.
And like go through and rate them.
Yeah, we could do that.
Have you seen the Good Mythical Morning episode where they drink 5 Red Bulls?
Oh.
Spoiler alert, they drink 5 Red Bulls and they try to see if like their brains on that much caffeine or is that are like a higher level than regularly functioning brains. And it's actually kind of trippy because Rhett Rhett has somebody in the back like write down a number between 1 and 100 and Rhett like tries to guess the number and he guesses the number. It's awesome.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You have a 1 in 100 chance to do it.
I know, that's true. And he got the right one.
He got the right one and he was flipping out.
Was it because he was just like...
He was in the zone that the Red Bulls had him.
So was he like mentally connected to the person he asked to like...
Maybe.
Pick a number?
I don't know.
He was on... I've got a story to tell you off podcast.
Part 2 of our nearly famous adventures.
Part 1 was part 1. It
Part 1
served
was
its
what
purpose.
it was. It did.
Yeah.
It did indeed. It popped our paranormal cherry. In part 2, we were more prepared with devices and I think there's an overall comfortableness.
I think,
or as you say, comfortableness.
Whatever, dude.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think part 2, I think going into part 1, we were like, okay, we're going to do this. And we didn't really know what we were doing. Going into part 2, we were doing it because we thought this place needed a bit of a better investigation than we gave it. And we were also preparing for the Sally House. So I think for me personally, there was a lot of excitement and eagerness. And I've learned from the previous experience. So I think we were very much more prepared. And we had planned some stuff out.
We did, yeah. We got a lot better about
our intro.
Yeah.
Just investigating in general. Doing things.
That's actually a really good point that I didn't think of was if we were excited to come back to this place or we were excited to get practice the week before we went to the Sally House. Because our part 2, we filmed it April 23rd. And then literally April 30th, we were at the Sally House.
It's gonna be May.
So I think that's definitely for me an underrated part of it is that like we were psyching ourselves up. Like this was a practice session.
You know what else we did that day? We interviewed Nate
Hardy.
Dude. That was a good day.
That was a great day.
That was a good week.
Nate Hardy is a great dude.
He's as I would say, he's a stand-up guy.
As great of an interview person as you could have.
So if you wanted to know, the interview we had with Nate Hardy is in the Sally House. And when we filmed that interview, we immediately came here for our investigation.
Correct.
What you see on YouTube is not chronologically correct most times.
True.
Because Sally House was our first video.
That's right. Something I also need to make a mention of is for myself, to never say when we're at a place to never say we're never going to come back here because we said that in the first one.
We did.
We might have said it in the second one.
I don't know if we did. I didn't because I didn't say anything.
Yeet. But we'll talk more about that later. Second one, we got more prepared. We got more gadgets like dowsing rods. Bought a couple flashlights. Bought this thing that shoots a big green laser dot grid.
Thing.
Which is really cool, but
really been able to see.
We've only used it twice.
Yeah, and it doesn't really like.
I didn't use it in the woods at all, did I?
You did.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah, but it was tough because there was like bugs.
True.
Yeah.
I guess we've used it 3 times then because we used it at the Beatty Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
We used it here, pointing that way.
Yep.
So the flashlight is an interesting thing. It's literally just a normal flashlight that a lot of other people on YouTube have used. Specifically, it's a twist flashlight. And I guess we can talk more about this a little bit later. But basically, you get the flashlight set down off, but like just off to where you twist it to where it's like it like just shuts off. And then you set it down, and then the quote unquote science behind it is if a spirit touches it, it reconnects the connectors in a
Circuit
flashlight.
or something. Yeah, you know more about it than I do.
I don't know how
I just know it
flashlights
turns
work.
on sometimes.
Yeah. And it's supposed to turn on when a spirit touches it, and then because they're energy based, and then
Yeah.
so we used that the first time. We kind of just had it setting up on the ledge. We weren't actively doing anything with the flashlight. We were actually getting ready to do a spirit box session,
Mhm.
And then the flashlight turned on, and it took us a second to realize it.
I have something to say about this.
Please do. Don't touch the table.
I'm not going to touch the table because I don't want the microphone to make a weird noise. We were sitting, if you're watching, literally like where the camera is, there's a table right behind you. We were sitting there, and I remember editing the footage. We were sitting there for a little over 5 minutes, and we had already set the flashlight up, and we were sitting there talking about what we were going to talk about during the open spirit box session. And we turn it on, and I say, hello.
That's right.
And then it turns on. The flashlight turns on. It had been sitting over there for over 5 minutes, and it doesn't do anything until we start the Estes session or spirit box session. I say hello, and it freaking turns on, and we freak out. I freak out, at least. I love watching that video actually because I'll just stare at the wall behind us, and as soon as it gets a little brighter, I go, oh, "It turned on!" And then you you
like,
point at it,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, dude!" Grab the camera. I was like, "What?" That's. We'll talk about how we kind of tested it after, but
Yeah.
like that, I don't know how to explain because it was sitting there for so long prior.
And it was tough for us to see initially too, because we have a light on top of the camera that's bright AF.
Yeah, it's the sun.
So yeah, we canceled our spirit box session and went into asking basically yes or no questions.
Yeah.
Or like if you are blank, turn it on, turn it off, that type of thing. And it was like responsive enough to our questions a couple times. Where it would like turn on and turn off. We asked it to, if you like us being, or if you don't want us to be here, can you turn the flashlight on and then off again, and then it comes on and like flickers and then comes off.
Yeah.
That's in my mind. That's just one of those. It's another one of those devices that like I can look back on and be like, that was probably just coincidence, that type of thing. And we actively tried to debunk it because we realized that it had like a cadence to it.
Yeah.
Where like it would be off for, I can't remember how many seconds, but like 4 or 5 times in a row, it was off for a certain amount of seconds, and then it was on for exactly 3 seconds, and then it was off for like the same exact.
Yeah.
It had like a cadence to it. Speaking of, I hit the table. I'm so
It's
sorry.
Okay.
Cadences. Dak Prescott. Have you heard his? Yeah, here we go.
Thankfully, no.
It's really funny.
I've not. I'm glad I just now learned about this. Wow.
So yeah, in the moment, it was cool, and
that was the first time the flashlight we'd ever used it. Really,
it was. Yes,
yeah,
it was. It never went off in the Sally house, did it?
Nope.
But looking back on it, is it just like one of those things where the connectors in the flashlight are like close enough together that like every once in a while they'll just like they'll reconnect?
I don't know. It's such a weird, phenomenon. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, because it had been sitting there for so long before it went off, and then it was like consistently turning off and on.
True.
Not consistently the whole time, but for a certain number of times it was consistent. I don't know.
Probably won't be able to actually debunk it for a while.
Yeah, once I would like to be able to, but I just don't know how necessarily. But I think that was a cool, unique part of the second video was the flashlight scenes. Also, the edit of the video, I remember putting little like heartbeat sounds in between the questions.
That's right.
I just thought that was cool.
I did make a note of one thing. I can't remember if this was before. It has to be after it went off for the first time. Well, obviously, but like if we were doing the spirit box session or before when we like cancel it, and anyways, but I think you asked it, can you turn the flashlight on again? And the spirit box said no.
Oh my gosh! Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that was right when it went on or went off. I think I just hit the table. I'm sorry. That was right when it went off. The spirit box was still on, and I think I said like, "Can you do that again, please?" or whatever.
Yes.
And it came through no,
Immediately.
which we didn't hear obviously in the moment, but listening back, you hear it go no.
I applaud you
So weird.
because you are really good at in the moment picking up stuff from the spirit box. Because specifically in part 2 of the Nearly Famous video, there's 3 or 4 separate occasions where you at least hear something come through that I didn't, or you hear it and you're like, did that just say that? And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it very clearly said it. I'm so bad at like in the moment picking up what the spirit box
It's
says.
such a weird device to get used to like deciphering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. I primarily noticed it in the second one
Mhm.
because I remember I heard like, did that just say? And you're like, I don't know, maybe.
Part 2 was also the first time we ever used dowsing rods.
Yes.
So dowsing rods, if you're watching the video version, it's these 2 things right there. Literally, it's just an L-shaped. It's probably not actually made out of copper. It's an L-shaped metal rod.
I think it's made out of lead.
Lead.
Yep.
Lead.
Lead and mercury. Mercury.
Okay.
Steph.
Oh my gosh. And they are. I think historically they have like a use. Well, obviously different than what people use them for now, but I think historically they were used to find like underground water or something weird. It didn't make any sense to me reading it.
It's me.
But a lot of paranormal investigators use them as kind of like another yes or no question answer thing where like they'll hold them up and the rods are like kind of like hanging forward, pointing forward, and then they'll swing around freely. And then they're like, hey, can you cross these rods if fill in the blank? Or can you open the rods away from me if blank? Or like point them both in the same direction, something like that. Really fascinating set of tools. Really fascinating tool. There's 2 of them. Tools. Really fascinating.
I think since it's a set and I guess you could have one without the other. I mean, you can, but do they do the same thing? It's a tool.
It is an underutilized tool by us because it's tough for us
Shaky
to
hands.
exactly. We got shaky hands and they move, and it's tough for us to debunk if they're swaying because a spirit, quote unquote, pointed them in the direction that we asked them to, or if we just moved our hand. Like in the Sally House video, we thought we got a response to something, and then you slow it down, zoom in, and like I just so ever slightly move my pinky.
Yep.
And it sways.
We used them in the Sally House, but it's not in the video because we can't say that what.
It's in the Sally House video.
It is. I haven't watched it in a while. But the one instance where something did happen with them, it's not in there because
true
hand twitch. Sorry. Can't control it.
I think we're gonna try to get even like a piece of wood that we're gonna screw 2 holes into and like place them in there and like set it somewhere level.
Because if those start swaying with like nobody touching them, that's hard to. I mean,
we'll
drafts and things like that.
Some tape measure, level, straight edge, saw.
I'm pretty straight edge.
We'll have to use some of them fancy tools, but I want to start using those again.
I think can't really talk about it yet, but our devices are a little limited. But
a device that we have that consistently goes off is our K2 meter.
Yes.
It's an EMF reader, EMF detector. So if there's a surge of energy, or if you hold it up to something that's actively electricity-fying,
a phone,
like a phone or a refrigerator or a light
switch, a refrigerator.
Yes, I just said that.
Sorry.
There's 5 colors on it. If it's on green, and then if it spikes up, it goes up to a lighter green, then yellow, then orange, and red. It's one of my favorite devices because it's like it's simple and it's very strict and very I don't know what's the term I'm looking for, but like that's a device that was not created by paranormal investigators. It's a device created by electricians to find wires and stuff.
Or we could just get a stud finder, but it'd always be going off with us.
Wow. Unlike the REM pod, where that is a device made for paranormal research, and it's made to go off, essentially. I
Yeah.
mean, you could argue that this is also made to go off, but
it goes off whenever it detects electricity.
yeah,
essentially.
it's very
And when it detects electricity in
cut
the
and dry.
woods,
in the woods.
weird.
That is weird. But that went off pretty regularly. We did a split session to where Payton and I split up. It's been like half an hour by ourselves. And I had the EMF reader, and it was going off like crazy. And in the video, you can see it's just sitting on a table. There's nothing under it.
Yeah.
There's boxes next to it that have nothing in it, but it's spiking up a lot, which was something to write home about. And again, it's another one of those things where I'm probably going to consistently look back on and be like, oh, it's bugged. It needs a new battery or something like that. But like I try to change the battery before every time we go to a place, just because if stuff has low batteries, it freaks out.
Oh, battery.
No battery mode. But the K2 went off a lot.
Yeah. Not only by yourself, but also like out here.
True.
Like in the bathroom and
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah. It went off at a lot of different places.
In which normally when it goes off immediately, we try to figure out what could have caused it to go off. And
we'll we'll walk it around a lot. We'll hit it on stuff.
Like at the Sally house, it went off by the basement and I was like, but there was like literally an outlet right there and a refrigerator that was making it just spike. So like we're trying to make sure that the things that we find aren't faulty. So yeah, that K2 is really nice for that kind of stuff.
I like it. For the rest of part 2,
I think the Estes sessions in part 2 are really interesting. I forget about the one that you had back in the store.
That's what we did back in the storeroom. Yeah. Which
was weird. I don't remember the exact responses for some things, but things lined up and I remember we've talked about this before, but when we went to end it, I was like, hey, like we're going to be ending this here soon. Is like anything else you want to say? Blah, 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 blah. And you end up taking your headphones off. And you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm like, it's so weird that always happens. And I remember you also talking about here about just how, like, I guess zoned out you got during it because you're trying to just listen and hear stuff. It's a weird experience. Tell me about it.
So I'm still trying to decide if I like it.
Yeah.
I think very obviously I prefer to be asking the questions. I don't really know what you prefer. But I don't know. I like trying to figure stuff out, and like changing the questions I asked based off of your responses. Okay. It's not that I don't like being the receiver, but it's just it's a weird experience because you're sensory deprived. You can't see anything. You can't hear anything outside of the constant exactly and the occasional word
and laughs
and oh gosh. But yeah, I don't know what it was, but specifically the Estes method we did here in part 2, where I was the receiver, I was zoning out. Like I was not really like in a trance, but I was like, I kind of felt myself like swaying a little bit and like getting dizzy.
Yeah.
And then like throughout the course of the session, I'm just like sitting up, and then throughout the course of the session, I think you see my head like slowly going down, and by the end of the session, my head's like at a 90-degree angle looking down. And I wasn't like active or like, intentionally trying to do that. It was just like, you're in a zone, you're feeling all sway like, and, yeah, it's a weird experience, but it's like, that's what's supposed to happen. Like the guy, Connor, who created the Estes method, he says that's what, as the receiver, you should get yourself in a comfortable state. Just be very like at ease and focus on the spirit box, and like that's it. And I think through that, naturally, you just kind of, you zone out for a second. You're in a when the lady in Avengers Endgame, I guess Doctor Strange does it too, but she'll like push you, and then your body like falls out of your body.
People might be following along with that, and that's okay. That's great. But I think you explained it pretty well without the in-game reference.
Do you like the Estes method?
I do. It's my favorite thing.
Would you rather, if we were with anybody else, would you want to be the one asking questions or want to be the receiver?
I think I'm pretty 50-50 about it. getting to whenever you're the receiver, you're not really a part of the conversation, even though you are.
Right.
But as I guess the asker, whatever you want to call it, you're the one that's like directly talking to whatever's deciding to talk to us,
Mhm.
which is also cool. But I think both are fun. I think both are scary because when you're blindfolded and you can't hear anything except this thing blasting in your ears in a place that could be haunted, that's scary and unsettling. But then also, especially when it's just two of us, when you're by yourself and your buddy's blindfolded and they can't hear anything,
Yep.
you're also in your own head and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is weird." Like what if something happens? I don't know. It's scary.
I'm so glad you feel that way because that's exactly how I feel. Like it's
Both are
both
so
are so
scary.
frightening, and that's why I love having people with us when we go to places.
Yeah.
Because it's along with it being like an extra set of eyes and an extra brain to think about stuff. It's comforting because I think specifically the Estes methods we do. Because just like you said, if you're under as the receiver, a million things could be happening, and then the other way around, if you're the person asking questions, I think specifically at the Wheeler hole in the woods, it was the most frightening because there's a million things happening around us.
Yeah, that was
And like,
dumb.
if you were under, well, when you were under and I was asking questions, like if something happened, like I had no idea what I would do. Like I would obviously like run up to you and like get you, but then that would freak you out.
Yeah.
And like if I saw or heard something, I couldn't be like, oh, did you hear that too? It's
Bro, did
freaky.
you hear that?
Exactly. I think that's why when we went back to the Wheeler hole, we
Yeah.
only stayed for 10 minutes because I was freaking out.
Yeah. It's scary. It's weird.
It's spooky.
So
But I like it because I think
Yeah.
it's my favorite thing because we're good at it. I think I can very confidently say that we're very good at Estes methods because I know we just like we are. It's the most solid pieces of evidence we can get, and we're good at it.
we got to practice it here. We got to practice it here. We were able to practice it here the
This is
first
true.
and the second time.
All of those things are true.
And for my Estes session that I did in the
Oh, in the
office,
kitchen, in the office. That's
in
right.
the office, which
Yeah.
is in the kitchen, there were some weird responses there. And then I this always goes over my head, but every time I watch it, I distinctly remember the feeling of getting poked, which I talk about in the video about it feeling like a muscle twitch or something like that. But I swear it felt like two fingers poking my shoulder, which that's not a muscle spasm twitch thing. So what an odd experience that was. I don't really have anything else to say about it. I just think it was weird. And I know I was blindfolded, and like if I looked over, I wasn't gonna see anything.
But you looked over.
But my body naturally just went, "What was that?"
Right.
And so it's weird. But I think both of our SS sessions here were interesting, to say the least.
I'm sure. I know in at least one other video I mentioned it or you mentioned it. I think in one video I mentioned it, in one video you mentioned it, but I haven't seen that one yet.
Did we mention it?
We mentioned it.
Okay.
Going back to the whole thing where I said that we're good with Estes sessions is, and I don't know if there's anything paranormal about it or we're just like we just have a feeling for when we're done, but like when we're doing Estes methods, like I'll ask like, is there anything else you want to tell us? And then you will immediately like take your headset off and unplug.
Yes.
Like we both have done that in three different locations. It's just fascinating to me that, like I said, it could be paranormal or it could just be that we have a feeling for, okay, this is, I feel like I've said enough type thing.
Yeah.
But it's just so curious to me that we both know when the other person asks that like last quote unquote question.
And they've been differing amounts of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never do it for like we never set a timer and that buzzes
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
We do it until we
Some
stop.
have been really short and some have been really long.
Yeah.
But
that was kind of it for here.
we split up, and that's when your K2 went off
Yeah.
a lot. Nothing happened, which I think hopefully pointed out in the video that it was interesting that nothing was happening in the kitchen, but you had a lot of activity happening in the back storeroom.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to point out after the Estes session in the kitchen, it was before we split up. When I got poked, I put quotes around it. I don't know if I don't know. Felt like it. And we were explaining what we were going to do over in a booth over there. I remember watching that I didn't really notice it at first, but coworker here noticed it. He's like, "You look like you're dead in that clip." I was like, "I think I was tired." I was like, "That's also after we did that, which was weird." I eventually got more energy, but I was dead through like the rest of the night. Which I thought,
You think there's anything to that?
I don't know if there's anything to it, but I think it's worth mentioning.
Because that was before we split up. Because it was when I was talking about how in every single video we do from here on out, we're gonna split up and
Which
do this
yeah, we
thing.
totally have.
Anyways,
Um,
yeah, you were
Yeah, that
conked.
specifically in that clip, I was dying,
Yeah,
just like totally out of it. I think I kind of recouped a little bit whenever I was by myself, but then after that, I was like, no, and I didn't say anything in the outro, which I apologize.
it's all good.
I had nothing to say.
If you have nothing to say, then don't say anything. I should have said that in a nicer way. I was trying to say it in a nice way.
This lady today,
Oh,
I brought a
gosh.
lady a water, but she wanted a Coke, and another lady at the table was like, she wanted a Coke. And I was like, okay, yeah. And she's like, was that mean? I'm so sorry. I was like, no, like you're good. Like it's totally fine. It wasn't mean. I've heard mean, and that wasn't mean.
Very true.
I want her to know that she wasn't being mean. So if she's listening to this, she's not.
What's her name?
I don't know what her name
Yeah,
is.
no, I knew you didn't.
I don't talk to people here. D- I guess. So is there anything like else in these investigations that like stick out to you?
I don't think so. Other than our conclusion that I think we've maybe came to about this place is that there might be something here. We can't confidently say there's not, but if there is something here, we think that it's kind of just going through the motions because like this place has been a restaurant for 50, 60, whatever years.
Yeah.
And kind of going off of what we got and what we felt while we were here, it's that if there is anything here, it's still doing its job. It's residual energy, I
Yeah.
guess you could say, of just something that like if you're a server, you're
Sorry.
doing the same thing every single day. Like it's different. The details of it are different, but you're still doing the same thing every single day. So if you're doing something for that long and you pass away and you come back as a ghost or whatever,
Which
if
are
that's
totally real.
right, yeah, totally. That you're going to be doing the same thing. So I think we thought that whatever was here didn't really, care for us in a good way or a bad way. It was just like
It knows us.
it absolutely knows us.
Yeah.
On 2 separate occasions, 5 months apart, it said my name and then your name.
My name, your name.
Yeah. But it's just like, oh yeah, those guys are here. I have 6 tables to greet. There's food ready. I have to get drinks. Like it's just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Residual energy is a very interesting topic that I want to learn more about so we can talk about it more.
Yeah. If there's a place that we've been to that would have that sort of thing, I think it would be here.
Mhm.
Because that knock bang thing that we heard a bang in the second video as well, over by the coolers,
Oh, that's right. At the very start of the video.
very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were just kind of like, that's
It was
Okay.
a noise. Again, it's like a
a
noise.
noise we've never heard before.
Yeah. And like we have been here for a long time. We know the noises,
Yeah.
that wasn't one.
Correct. But those are noises that, like, if residual energy is a thing, like, how many times has something like banged a table
Right.
all the time? So I think that conclusion is I vibe with it. I think-
Vibe.
Another day, another.
Another victory for the OG. How did you feel coming back to work the following Tuesday morning and thereafter?
So the first time, I felt probably, I think, like a little weird. I was like, okay, like we investigated this place and some stuff happened, but also I'd been here prior and hadn't really felt anything, and I didn't really feel anything afterward. It was just kind of like a weird mindset thing. And then the second time, I didn't really feel anything, I think, because like it's weird to look at this place as like a potentially haunted place
Mhm.
and not like the place I work. But I think the biggest thing that I noticed and felt afterward were the conversations I had with some of the coworkers and reactions to things happening.
Such as?
Being freaked out by flashlights turning on by themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically our names and the other names that we might have heard.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Gerald
And Anthony.
and Anthony are both people that are connected to this place. One works here and one is a relative of somebody that works here.
When I watched that video in preparation for this podcast, I don't remember making a big deal out of that. And I think that there should have been a bigger deal about that made.
Yeah.
Because two names of somebody, one that were like you just exactly what you said, one that works here, one that is a relative of this place. Like
that's weird.
it's past a coincidence.
They were-
one is a coincidence. Two is past a coincidence.
They were not on my mind at all.
Exactly.
I was not thinking about coworkers. I was not thinking about anything like that. And those two names coming up, don't know how to explain it. But though I got some weird reactions to that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So, but I personally didn't really feel weird. There still are nights where I'll be like leaving and all the lights are off and my eyes will just play tricks on me and I'll just get like a weird feeling. Like I want to use the bathroom before I leave, but it's dark and I'm like, I don't want to go over there, so I'm not going to. I'm going to hold it.
Yep.
So I still get a little freaked out, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure I told you about this, but there was one night I was here.
When you stayed and studied some?
Yeah, I did tell you about this.
Yeah, and I never
there
forgot.
I go again, telling stories
No,
at the same time.
You only told me
No.
once.
Okay. Well, here's twice.
This is for other people, not for me. Yeah, it's for me too. Did you just see that fly?
There's been a fly flying around.
Okay, I just saw it for the first time. I see it.
I closed one night, and I stayed after we were done to study because I had to go to campus and take a test. And I was studying, and we have a trash bag on top of a cabinet that holds like dirty linens that we take back to our linen person and say, hey, why were these dirty? Give us new ones. Not like they were used and we put them all in a bag and like, this one has food on it. Why'd you give us one that has food on it? No, they were like, anyways, we throw linens in a trash bag.
That come to us dirty.
That come
when they shouldn't be.
Correct. And it was on top of a cabinet that was directly behind where I was sitting. And I was the only buddy here. Wowzers.
You got it.
I was the only one here. And it sounded like more than like a rustle of like wind hitting it, which it couldn't have been wind. It couldn't have been wind because we turned all the lights off and turned all the fans off, all that stuff. It was more than a rustle. It was like not quite someone like taking it back and like opening it where they like, open it. the sound exactly. That's how
that
it
was a whip.
But it was in between those two things, and I was freaked out. I whipped my head around and was like, I didn't see anybody. The bag itself wasn't moving, but I swear to God, somebody opened a trash bag behind me. And I picked up my stuff and finished my studying on campus and left.
I'm out of here.
Because that was after probably both of them. Yeah, because it was a final. It would have been May. So it was like 2 or 3 weeks after our second investigation here. And I wasn't thinking about stuff at all. Kind of like what you said, like you'll have thoughts about this place, but this isn't like a super haunted place that you're scared to be at while you're working or after you're working or something like that. So I wasn't really thinking about any of that stuff. But when that happened, I was like, man, it freaked me out. Not gonna lie.
This kind of stuff is like freaky. And this place has those little things. Like imagine right now we just hear like a paper towel dispenser go off. It'd be spooky.
Yeah.
But
No, exactly.
That's the kind of stuff that happens here for sure.
You want to tease it or you want to just say it?
I think just a little tease.
A little tease.
Just a little tease.
We shouldn't have said that we're never coming back here.
Correct. We'll leave that at that. Are there just like any other? I mean, we've sort of talked about some of the devices that we used and using them here and why we like them. Talked about some things that stuck out to us. Is there any? I can't think of anything.
Why do we see this place as a place that we can continue to come back to?
I think because we still don't know what is here. And I personally want to know. Like, I would like to know a name that we could, like, talk to properly. Because, like, I mean, it could be, like, something that's working, or it could be, like, somebody who used to come here, but they're dead now. I don't know if any of this stuff is real.
I was about to say.
Let me just preface
Yeah.
that. So I think that's why we would still ever come back here is just to learn. Because I still don't know if we know exactly what's here. I don't like sitting like this because I'm just like
You look chill.
pressed up against my torso. Yeah, I think I hit the table with my foot. With my foot.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, we'll definitely have a. I guess we should call it a namesake episode as to why our podcast is titled "Ghosts Aren't Real."
We'll talk about it. Yeah,
We'll definitely talk about that.
once I understand why it's called that.
Me too.
Personally,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I need to talk
You got
about
a little
this to
scratch.
you. I don't know where it came from. It's not a cat.
I was about to say, did Carmichael scratch you?
I woke up one morning with it. I don't
So
remember going to
Carmichael probably
sleep.
scratched
No,
you.
nope,
Your rings.
nope. It's weird.
It's interesting.
Interesting.
Well, is that it?
I mean, I think so. If at this point you haven't watched part 1 and part 2 of us investigating Nearly Famous Deli and Pasta House, which we're at right now, you should go to YouTube, type in PLI and then Nearly Famous, NEARLY space FAMOUS.
That's right.
And it'll pop up and it'll be us on the thumbnail. And you'll click on it, and you'll watch it, and you'll understand about all the stuff we talked about. And then you can come back to the podcast and listen to the podcast like, oh my gosh, they're talking more about the thing that I saw them do. Oh, the spirit box. Where'd that REM pod go? I don't know.
They'll find out soon.
Are they ever going to go back? I don't know. Are they ever going to go back?
They. Capital T. While you're there, leave a like and a comment. Subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Yeah, please do so. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of Ghosts Aren't Real. My name's Levi.
And you know what? My name is Payton.
Look at that.
And this is Larry.
Larry the Loot Llama.
And we'll see you in the next...
Son of a gun.
Yes. Is he a son of a gun? Look at those lips. Dang, dude. I didn't even notice those.
Yacht? Question mark?
Yacht! Yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Hit the table in 3, 2, 1.